Welcome to the podcast. It starts with you, with me, Vic O'Farrell. I ask my guests, by understanding their own behaviours and personality style, what impact on their lives, both personally and professionally, has there been? What is it like to live and work with someone of your style? I mean, this is not about labelling people, putting people in boxes, or an excuse for bad behaviour. It's about recognising, understanding and respecting that we're all different. And what impact can you have on others by looking in the mirror? Because it starts with you. And here we are with another episode of It Starts With You, this wonderful podcast. And today I am joined by a very wonderfully high-eye, big yellow personality, Kerry. Great to see you, Kerry, or to hear you if you're listening in on this one. Rather than me introduce you, do you want to just let all the listeners know who you are, what you do, and your personality profile?
Oh, Vicky, thank you so much for inviting me on. Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm Kerry Lockyer, and gosh, I've been in the world of learning and development for about 25 years now. 20 of those years in really large organisations as a sort of a senior learning partner. But for the last 5 years, I've had my own business, Oomph Learning and Development, and I work with teams and organisations to help them deliver exceptional results by investing in their people. And just about everything that I do has personality profiling at the heart of it. So I do a lot of work in the leadership development space. I work with sales teams. I work in customer experience, and I also spend quite a lot of time working with teams to help them to understand more about themselves and each other and work more effectively together. So that's a little bit about what I do. Oh, and you might have guessed, I have quite a lot of sunshine yellow energy. So I'm licensed and accredited to use Insights and Clarity 4D, which are there's loads of brilliant tools out there, right? And I think you find the one that works for you, but these are the two that I use, which means I use the language of color. So red, yellow, green, and blue. I have loads of yellow energy, which means I'm quite creative. I love being around other people. Also have a lot of red energy, actually, which means I love to get stuff done and make stuff happen. I've also got quite a lot of green energy, which means I really care about everybody and making sure everyone's okay. And like all of these, I do have some blue energy. It's just a teeny weeny bit, teeny weeny bit. But we can all dial them up, right?
Yeah. So with the only teeny weeny bit of blue, when it comes to things like detail, is probably
Yeah.
something you might outsource, would you say, in your business?
Anything to do with finance, accounting, tax, all of that sort of stuff. I have people that help me with that. Yeah, absolutely.
But that's not saying that you can't do it. You could do it if you had
I
to.
could do it. Absolutely. Like all of these things, they're not about capability, are they? They're just about preference. So
Yeah.
I could sit in a room on my own with a spreadsheet. In fact, I'm really good at analysing data. It's just not my preference. So I avoid it like the plague.
Because by the end of it, I probably need a large glass of something.
Yes, indeed. I'd rather have a chat with some of my network around what this means rather than me analyse it. It's just a preference, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I love about the whole profiling stuff. I mean, we were chatting before we actually started recording this about, what brings you joy and doing jobs in the past where you've had that, oh God, I've got to go to work tomorrow. And we've all done it, haven't we?
We've all had that Monday morning dread or whatever day that week it happens to be. Yeah, I was employed for 20 years in organisations which at the time mostly I loved, but there were always moments that were up and down.
Mm.
Yeah, and yeah, but when you have your own business, there's more of the ups. You still get the downs, right? But just there seems to be more ups. And
Yeah.
and when things align with you personally, it's just a joy, isn't it? We were saying that it doesn't feel like work when you love what you do so much.
Oh, absolutely. And I think sometimes for me, it was, you'd get those days of dread of going to work, not sometimes because of the job that you did, but perhaps you looked at the diary and looked at the people that you were going to have to spend the day with. Maybe you're on a project team and you thought, I've got to spend. And for you and me, it would be if I'm spending a day with people with very blue energy, I know that I'd have to dial my yellow down, which might actually then mean, you know, I'm going to be exhausted by the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. But yeah, people that are opposite to us from a personality perspective, they can be draining, as we spoke about. But actually, I've over the last 20 or so years, I've learned to really value the contributions that our opposite types can have, because they will always show you and introduce you to a different way of thinking or a different perspective that you hadn't naturally considered yourself. So yeah, like anything, you kind of, you appreciate that.
Oh, and also I think only now knowing and understanding about personalities, I look at a team and I think, yeah, if the team was just full of people like me and you, God, we'd have some fun. But actually, where's the detail and actually pulling it through?
Yeah.
And on that, I want to just pick up on something because I watched your lovely TED talk that you did, and that was post COVID when you did
Yeah.
that. And there was a bit that you brought up in it about your daughters. You've got two daughters and how different they are. So a lot of people think, oh, yeah, but it's in the genes, your personality. I mean, I'm one of four siblings myself, and we're all very different. But you talk about your two daughters being very different. Can you just expand on that a little bit more?
Gosh, you tipped about COVID. It feels like ages ago, doesn't it? So like a lot of parents, when the schools shut down, we were in this place of, gosh, what on earth do we do? Well, not just schools, but everything. And I remember thinking, perhaps I should introduce my kids to what I do in terms of a personality profile, because they know that what I do. I talk about it all the time, but I know they'll be interested for a little while. So one of the tools that I use, Clarity 4D, has a youth profile. So I sent them a link. They completed the profile. We generated their report, and I thought, oh, we'd set aside half an hour for them to kind of go through it. Half an hour turned into an hour, turned into half a day, which then turned into a whole day, Vic. Honestly, they just suddenly had these moments of realization and understanding that they were really different. In fact, I always knew that they were different, but I didn't quite understand how different they were until we'd kind of kept exploring it, kept doing activities and games, and by the end of that day, they were like, "Whoa!" And at that moment, actually, it made me think, we really need to be teaching our children this at school. I mean, I know the education system, they have to cram a lot in, but surely understanding who you are and recognizing that we're not all the same and it's just a preference that we have. And actually, if I did understand somebody who was different to me, yeah, I'd see a whole new perspective. But it's just like the foundation to everything, isn't it? It's the foundation to communication and negotiation and team building, and everything that you do in life has this as the bedrock. And gosh, I absolutely think it helped my kids to stay healthy and mentally well during lockdown, because they understood about each other and they understood what they needed as individuals. So yeah, it was such a moment of realization.
So before you did that with them, did they clash as sisters?
Oh, like every sibling, I think you possibly did. Yeah, they were really different. So they didn't really, and weirdly, they don't really clash. I don't think more than any other pair of kids, but they were really different. So I always knew that their color preferences were different, but I didn't realize how different and to what extent, I suppose. So we did lots of activities. There was one where I showed them a picture, right? So this is so the Insights in Clarity 4D is based on the work of Carl Jung, and he talks about psychological preferences. And there's three. One of them is how you take in information. So I showed them a picture, and it happened to be like a sunset. It was the sky was kind of a pinky purpley color. There was a mountain which was a shadow, and there were six birds on it. And I said to them, right, I want you to write down three words that are there for you in this picture. And Olivia, my eldest, had written down pink sky, mountain, six birds. It was literally what she could see. Maddie, my youngest, she wrote down freedom, Hannah Montana, and Armageddon, right? And they looked at each other, and Olivia went, "Oh, that makes no sense." But do you know what? It absolutely does make sense. It's just your preference for taking in information, right? But that was just one of the really stark differences. The way that they make their decisions is really different, and how and where they get their energy is also really different. So one of them is a kind of thinking preference mixed with introversion. The other one is a feeling preference mixed with extroversion. So one leads with kind of green and green and blue. The other one leads with yellow and red, really. So we're really different. But it just explains so much. At school, for example, one of them was always the first to put the hand up. Maddie, that is Maddie. And because she just wanted to speak, she just wanted to say stuff. And that's what extroversion preference does, right? You speak and it helps you to think. Whereas introversion preference, Olivia was sitting back, taking it all in. And if you asked her and picked on her in a class and highlighted her, she would hate that. And it's just our preferences, right? This is another reason why I think it's so important to kind of school-aged children and teachers to understand this too. I just think people's learning would be enhanced by this understanding.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you talk about the whole put your hand, I mean, I was always literally, put my hand up. Yeah. I think at school, my careers teacher told me I'd come to nothing because I spoke too much. Who knew that speaking for a living was something back then? It wasn't, was it? But it was. Then I always remember teachers would then pick on the ones that were quiet because they thought, well, you're being too quiet. You need to join in. Whereas opposed to, like you say, extroversion is very much your thought process is verbalized. That you verbally think your thoughts, whereas introversion you internalize your thought process. Therefore, you need more time to answer. You can't just pick on. And we both do the same kind of work, so we both know straight away when you're in that room with people. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to ask you the question, but I'm going to say, so I'm going to come around and ask you to answer all this. Kerry, I'll come to you last. So I'm letting you know, and obviously this is opposite to your colour, Kerry, that I'm going to come to you, but I'm letting you know that I'm going to come to you last so that you've got time to think about it before you answer it.
Exactly that.
And it's those little tiny things that without saying to somebody, I'm highlighting what your personality is and therefore you're different. I'm just letting you know. And therefore I'll just come to you when you're ready. It is so powerful. You're absolutely right. It's the foundations and bedrock of everything that we do in life, not just business, is it? I mean, what difference has it made to you, both personally and professionally, to understand what your sunshine yellow is?
I bet, Vicky, you can probably remember the time when you first were exposed to this. So for me, it was probably around 20 years ago, and I was working in a team, and I knew that I loved being around people, but I hadn't really joined up all the dots and realized what that was. And I just thought everyone was like me. I thought everybody loves being around everyone else. They love coming up with new ideas and throwing them around a room and saying, what about this and what about this? And it wasn't until the first time I'd ever gone on an insights workshop and somebody came up to me from my team at the end of the day and he went, Kerry, I didn't know how to tell you this before, but you used to terrify me. And I was like, oh, honestly, that was like I felt that slap around my face because that was not my intention. And to know that I terrified somebody was a real moment of realization that that's not what I intended. I've got a lot of green energy too, which means I try and make people feel comfortable, but just hadn't realized that this person was really opposite to me. Clearly they lead with blue energy. And when I go bounding in and like, oh, why don't we try this, and we could give this a go, and oh, what about this? They were just trying to process it in their head. They were getting to the one perhaps good idea out of the 200 that I just vomited over them. They were just trying to get to the one thing that we might be able to make a difference on, but I just blew his mind, and my approach was just wrong. But it was so powerful for both of us in that moment because he could say to me, Kerry, I know it's your yellow energy. And I said, I get it. I understand your blue energy, right? So with that insight, we absolutely were able to kind of both come to a middle ground where I would think about what I wanted to say in a structured and logical way and present it to him. And that worked amazingly for both of us. And that's the power of people who think opposite to you, right? And different. You can have some amazing conversations and amazing working relationships with people that are really different to you if you understand why that is and how that could benefit you.
And I love what you just said in that bit there about the fact that you're very yellow energy, he was very blue energy. So you then realized when you're working together about how you flex and adapt when you're with each other. You're not changing who you are, because this is never about change. We can't change who we are, but it's about recognizing the impact that you have on somebody that isn't the same style as you.
Yeah.
I.e., right, I need to do this in a structured way, with not going, what about this? What about this? That. Oh, and that. And try this. Bright, shiny things, unicorns. I don't know why I always say that, but where they're just going, you've lost me. What happened to just point one to start with?
Yeah.
And then he's obviously realizing that actually he needs to dial up then his blue, and not be so structured, and actually go, yeah, go on, do you know what, just let's have a little bit of fun on this. Fun is good.
Do you know exactly that? And yeah, when you both realize that, in fact, what I found myself doing was giving him evidence as well. And I would go and say, okay, so I thought about this is why, this is some other things that I've found out about, and I really think we should try it in this way. What do you think? How can we? And just tweaking your approach makes a massive difference.
The language that you use, absolutely, changing the language that you use, so that you're not changing your energy so much, but you're using their language that they then understand. Because I can't dial me down. I am me, but if I talk in blue language, because I don't think people even realize that, is that the words are different. We use different words, and that's that, like you say, it's the foundations of everything we do. And you can read people by body language, by actual language, not as in different mother tongues, but the words that we use. And I pick up as well, because I'm very much about personalities are the things that, like you say, that you can see, that you can read, that you can understand. But you can't do that so much with values, can you? So core values. And whilst I would say personalities don't really change over your lifetime, they generally are who you are, but your values can be impacted by your life's experiences, because I know that my values have changed over the years. So where do you say, because you do a lot of giving work, don't you? So I'd see you as quite a philanthropist in a way, because
Yeah.
well, you do the work with the Girls Network. You see that but there's your green energy coming through. Go, what, me, really? I don't want to take that compliment. No, I'm going to shy away. Talk about some
And
of the stuff that you do with the Girls Network and Project Mackenzie as well. You talk about.
so what I love about these tools is they work amazingly in organisations, and they deliver some off the scale results in a corporate world. So as I said before, I work with leadership teams in leadership development. I do some stuff with sales teams, and you can see the results that they deliver off the scale. But actually, what I love about what I do now is I get to do that because I have a lot of red energy. So I like to make a difference. I like to physically see a performance improvement, but I also have a lot of green energy, as I said, and actually giving back, making a difference to my community, sharing this stuff with other people who might not necessarily be able to access it is absolutely what aligns with me personally. So, God, yeah, I do a lot of stuff in that space. So I mentor for the Girls Network. I don't know if you know anything about the Girls Network. They are an amazing organisation who were set up by two teachers, actually. And what they realised was, depending on your postcode, some girls would have access to a really wide network of female mentors that might be able to kind of help to expand their thinking and get them to think and aspire to do different roles. But actually, some girls from less advantaged postcodes, the people that surrounded them might well be in low skill, low paid jobs. So the Girls Network was set up to through schools, so that professional women would mentor girls in less advantaged postcodes, just to help them to think differently, to have their back, to introduce them to other networks and other people that might create a career path or a career option for them they hadn't previously considered. So I just love it. So I mentor for them, but I also end up doing some work with them. So soon I'm working with not just my mentee, but all of the mentees in the program, in the school that I'm working with, college that I'm working with, to run a session for them using the Collaborative Order Youth Profile, which I'm super excited about. So that's one thing that I do. I also recently worked with the Prince's Trust through Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service to do something similar. There's loads of occasions. I have the pleasure of working with Chris Akabusi to support his Project Mackenzie program. So Project Mackenzie is all about helping adults transitioning out of the care system to deliver or to have better outcomes. So whether that's joining a training program or going to college or getting a job, this program transforms young people's lives, and I have the pleasure of supporting on week 2 of it with this profile. It's just, as I say, it just makes my heart sing when young adults who had a really tricky time in life, they've had loads of challenges through no fault of their own necessarily, but you can see their strengths and their preferences come out through the behavior profiling, and suddenly this moment of, oh, this is why I might struggle with this person, or this is why I react in this way when this kind of thing happens. Just building self-awareness helps you to become that better person, and then ultimately, to get a good job and change your outcome. So that sort of stuff is super important to me.
And did you say, again, before we were chatting today, there was a story I remember you telling me about an interview, one of them on the Project Mackenzie, and you said the impact.
So yeah, as I say, because their progress is tracked and their outcomes are tracked, there's nothing more satisfying for me than getting a phone call to say, Kerry, guess what? Do you remember X person on the program? They've now got a job, or they've been offered a role. Do you know what? It's just, as I say, just makes my heart burst with joy.
And that is, so to me, it's that, like you say, it aligns with not just your green energy, but clearly your values are very much about fairness, as in what you're doing in terms of giving people who perhaps don't have access to this kind of thing, you're giving it to them because you want everyone to be able to. Well, you and me, I think we're both very similar to that. It's like everyone should do this, everyone should
Yeah.
know this, but
And
people don't always have the access to it.
people don't always have the access to it. I have no doubt that I come from a really privileged position. I've got 2 daughters. They are really fortunate with the cards that they've been dealt with in life. And they also know quite a lot about themselves and each other through this. But I know what a difference it's made to them, and I know what a difference it makes to young people. And I don't know what difference it makes to teams and salespeople, but it makes a difference to everyone who is lucky enough to experience it. And if I can share a bit with teams or individuals or groups or charities or whoever that is, that makes a difference to them and it improves their outcomes, then I am all about that. That is the thing that really motivates me.
Mm. And again, I think I know we're both very similar in terms of that, and to try and do is give back to others. Because I think even if I said, if we didn't need money, yeah, if that was, cash was not a currency, would you still do what you do now?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I think, remember, we were talking about this earlier. This is such a simple concept for people to understand. I don't think people I think a lot of people, like we did until the first time we experienced it, probably go through the life just thinking that everyone is quite like you,
Yeah.
right? And they can't understand why we might not do things in a similar way. But this is such a simple concept that even young people, I mean, really young people, I've worked in primary schools, and even young children can understand the concept that we're all different and we might not see things in the same way. And actually, what about if I come and stood in your shoes and understood things from your perspective? How powerful that is as a skill
Yeah.
in life, as a building self-awareness and emotional intelligence and empathy and understanding and all of that kind of stuff that serves you well throughout your life.
Yeah, because we always talk about this not being something to label people with or put people in boxes. Yet that's exactly what we did when we were at school, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Our subconscious labels people at school because you're just like, well, they're the boffins, they're the bullies, they're the quiet ones, they're the clowns. We do that without realizing that actually that's just probably different energies and how it's coming out. Just to pick up a little bit there as we come to the end of this one. So I, as you know, use the DISC system, and there's loads of different tools out there. You've talked about Insights and Clarity 4D. So why did you choose Clarity 4D? I've chosen DISC for its simplicity,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
why have you chosen Clarity
yeah.
4D?
So when I set up my own business about 4.5 years ago, I'd previously been an insights practitioner. I loved the language of colour. It's so powerful, as you know. Um, but I was in a place where I was starting up on my own, and I was kind of I knew that I wanted to use a colourful behavioural tool. So I did lots of research, and actually I align quite closely with the Clarity 4D values. So the tools are really similar. But Clarity 4D was more about has this philanthropic approach, right? So they want to work with charity, third sector. And they have a range of profiles that are really great value for that audience. So they have a youth profile and a new direction profile and a public sector profile, and that a whole range of different profiles that are really affordable. And that's why I started my journey with Clarity 4D. I'm Insights licensed again because I had a client that really loves Insights. And I think if you've used, but I'm sure you have clients that love DISC and that's the only thing they want to use. That's the same with me and Insights. Insights is an amazing tool, really focused on the corporate market. Clarity 4D is an amazing tool. It gives me a range of other options. I suppose that's why I use both. But I love both of them. They're both fabulous.
And I say to people when I'm talk, when people go, oh, what does the Queen of Behaviours do? And it's like, look, the foundations of what I do is about personality profiling, the DISC system. And I said, there's loads of them out there. And it doesn't, I honestly, I say to people, it doesn't matter what tool that you use the tool that works for your organization, but use it. Embed the language of that tool in your organization. I'm not in for going, right, okay, let's just go and do a one-off workshop with your team and leave. Because was my experience in the corporate world, is we'd go and do these amazing away days and we'd have so much fun on the day. And then the next day, probably because I'm very yellow, I've gone back to being me because it wasn't embedded as part of the culture. Whereas,
Yeah.
is that the difference that you notice when it's embedded as part of a culture?
Oh, so I've worked with an amazing organisation. I'm really proud of the work that we've done. But they wanted to work with a tool like this to help celebrate and help embed they called it their leadership message. So this is the vision, the values, the purpose of their organisation. So we partnered with them and we still work with them now. So this is years on, but they've embedded the language of colour into the whole organisation, from kind of like pre-onboarding throughout their induction and their onboarding, their development programs, their performance management. It's everything, and it's all about that. It's all about culture change, isn't it? And celebrating and valuing our differences, but celebrating what that could mean, and as I say, bringing it together under their leadership message, their vision, values, and purpose. So it's amazing what can happen when you when everyone in the organization has the same level of understanding of each other and each other's preferences. Gosh, it's just amazingly powerful. We did so many sessions with this organization. I'm super proud of it. But people used to come in and tell us stories each and every time we'd go back. They go, oh, we did this with our team and this, and there's just, I don't know, this amazing multiplier effect when everyone in the organization understands it. And as I'm saying, it's weaved into your processes and your way of being. Yeah, weaved into the DNA, and that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, it's powerful. I mean, I've got clients that it's the same. And you go in the next time and someone comes up to you. And I do remember one girl come up to me, she goes, oh my God, it was so powerful. My relationship with my husband has changed beyond recognition because I now understand that he's very opposite. So she was very yellow like you and me, and her husband was very blue energy. And she said, I just get him now. And he now has read her profile and said, now he gets me. I went, excellent. And then I've ended up going and working with the husband's business. It's just powerful stuff.
It's just powerful stuff. And it works, like you say, and it works just as well outside of work as it does inside. When you know, right? So you can apply it to every one of your relationships in every situation.
Yeah.
And it just helps you to think differently, doesn't it? And I suppose this is the bedrock for me, the foundation. We talked about understanding yourselves, but actually organizations that are cognitively different, and this is one amazing way of discovering that. But cognitively different organizations who have people that think in different ways spot risk much quicker, so they're able to deal with it. They innovate much more quickly. So it always comes back to, why should we do this, right? There's always a financial bottom line benefit to the organization for doing it.
Yeah.
You can always deliver a result. Now that might be a soft result around engagement, but that's linked to performance, right? Or it might be a hard result if you're working with a sales team. You can see the improvements they'll have in sales and margin and all of those kind of things. It's So yeah, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do, or it might be like you say, with your friends and your family. You have got a better relationship with them, and that's priceless too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I know we could talk for hours, days on this. Not only the fact that we're both the same energy, but just the fact that we're both so passionate about this subject, like everyone else that I've interviewed on this podcast. But I am going to bring this conversation to a close. But Kerry, before I do, because I'm sure there's people who've either watched this on YouTube or be listening to it going, "Oh my God, I love the sound of Kerry. How can I get hold of Kerry?" So where can people find you hanging out these days, and how do they get hold of you?
Well, I mostly hang out on LinkedIn. So yeah, or you can, my website is Oomph Learning and Development. So that's OOMPH, because yes, I help people find their oomph. But yeah, in LinkedIn or my website, or yes. And my name, Kerry Lockyer, is in case you're listening to this rather than watching, it's Kerry with a K, Kerry, and then Lockyer, Lockyer.
Wonderful. And I should put all of those details in the show notes too. Kerry, it's been amazing to have you on this podcast, and I look forward to catching up with you very, very soon.
Thank you for having me, Vicky.
Take
See
care.
ya.
How has this conversation had an impact on you? What have you learnt? What will you do differently? Do leave a review on Apple or Spotify on It Starts With You podcast. And also leave a comment down below. Do also then connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And why not even join the Facebook group It Starts With You and keep the learning ongoing. Thank you for listening.